Hello! Join us as we meet Morgan of Morgan's Comics The Nerd Sanctuary at 600 Haywood Road in Asheville, North Carolina.
Who is Morgan of Morgan's Comics? Where did you grow up, and just a little bit of your backstory.
Sure. I was born in Florida. I spent most of my years in Gainesville, Florida. Hello. Welcome to the Nerd Sanctuary. And I had dreams about this area, about Asheville, even though as a little kid I didn't know, there wasn't internet then, so I couldn't Google anything, but I did dream of being in the mountains even when I was little, and I just didn't know that this is where it was supposed to be, and I came to visit a good friend in 2007, and I realized that this must be the place for my dreams. And so I did everything I could to finish up with college and get my family packed up and move us out here and put down roots here. And that was 15 years ago.
Well, that's great.
Yeah.
Well, welcome to the area. A late welcome to the area. We're glad you're here. What part of Florida did you grow up in?
North Central Florida.
North Central?
Yeah, so Gainesville, Florida is where I spent most of my time. And no, I'm not a really huge Gators fan, but I did spend plenty of time around the swamp.
Okay. So, who are you as a comic book fan? What are your interests for your personal, what do you personally follow?
Just any of the comic. Oof, just one, or you want a list?
Do you have a top five?
Well, I love Saga more than any other story I've ever read, especially comic books, but maybe it's pretty up there for even chapter books. But Saga's an incredible story. If you haven't read it yet, you need to. It's by Brian K. Vaughan and Fiona Staples. The art is very crisp and beautiful and clear, and the dark lines are all in the foreground, so it kind of draws you into the piece so that you're really involved in the action. And Brian's so very talented at building a relationship. You get invested in the characters really quickly, maybe a paragraph or two, but could go on and on. It's an amazing story, and it deals with a whole lot of current issues that we still fight for.
Yeah.
And it gracefully explains situations that maybe you wouldn't consider, and you can feel in their place the choices they might have to make, and I've never seen a story do it as well. And then I guess after that, because it's not all about Saga here, I really, really enjoyed reading Kill Your Darlings this year. I realized that more so than in my past, I've always, despite my sunny personality, I've always really enjoyed dark survival horror kind of stories. But I realize now that they all have really beautiful art to them. So even the video game Silent Hill is one of my very favorites, and it's terrifying. But the art in it, it's so gray and rusty fences and ashes in the air. It's just beautifully done. And many of you would probably know about The Last of Us. They made it a TV show last year, and the comic book, the video game that it's from, is the same. Ooh, I'm gonna try not to mangle this guy's name, but his first name is Gustav. It might be Sanatella. He made the soundtrack for Last of Us, and it's beautiful to draw to and to write to, and the video game shows a world where abandoned human structures are being taken back over by nature, and it's gorgeous. It's beautifully done. But the story Last of Us, if you saw the TV show, is intensely scary. Yeah. So I realize more and more these days that I like that in comic books too. Saga is very colorful, very vibrant colors, but really extremely dark stories at times. And it's sci-fi with some fantasy in it too, which is my favorite. And then Kill Your Darlings is like that also. Yeah. It definitely is really vibrant artwork and color and imagination, and I love all of that. But the story is very dark and, death and murder and complications and pregnancies and just intense story situations. And mental illness and psychiatric hospitals, but the artwork is gorgeous. And almost every comic book I like the most is like that.
Well, that's great. That is great. So, now, what is your typical week like?
Now, I mean, post to lean, it's always really been whatever the store needs from me, really. And right now, even more so, because we've had to all learn how to be a little bit more dynamic and versatile and malleable and able to be diverse in what we can handle in a day. So I feel like now I don't even have a set schedule. My schedule is whatever my volunteers' availability is. Outside of that, I'm here.
Yeah.
And I've always been that way. It's always been might sound a little extreme perhaps, but it's always been, if I give up now, what was the point of starting this in the first place? So even if I'm tired, I will get up and I will make it happen. Hey, welcome to the Nerd Sanctuary. But I love this place, genuinely. I have loved it since the minute I set foot in here. I thought the plan was beautiful, and I'm very, very grateful that I get to do what I do. Yeah, and serendipitous too, because I was a wedding planner and director, because I love love. I mean, I'm not always saying the institution of marriage is for everyone, and I'm definitely not saying I feel like the government should have its hands on what does or does not happen in marriage, but I do love the love story. And so that was 11 years of writing and directing weddings. And then out of nowhere, I saw a listing that these guys were trying to create a comic book store in West Asheville. And so I jumped at the chance to share my nerd knowledge, because it wasn't something I got to use a whole lot in directing weddings. And then it just became that. I did weddings and comic books at the same time for a while, but then eventually you can't really, you can't promise to be there for a bride and groom at 2 o'clock in the morning and maintain regular business hours, So eventually I have all the testimonials, so I put that to the side to run the shop, and eventually the relationship between the two partners in the beginning of the shop, that totally dissolved, and I was suddenly in the big seat. It was all what Morgan thought, and I love it. And that's been years now, and we're still going.
What year did you start the Morgan's Comics?
The store began what we lovingly call the Nerd Sanctuary. Started in 2015, and the relationship between those two dissolved because one of them is an atrocious comic book style villain, and the other one's just a businessman and was fed up with it. And so that dissolved about 2.5 years in, and then we became a completely woman-owned business, which I didn't see that. That wasn't on my bingo card.
But how are you received as a woman in the comic book, as an owner of a comic book store in this industry that has traditionally been dominated by men?
There definitely has been some pushback. I would say less. I would like to say we've made some progress. So in the beginning, again, this evil twisty mustache style comic book villain, it really exposed me to how evil nerd folks and how predatory nerd folks can be. And I know it can be any gender, but most of them I've met have been men, and I learned a lot about trying to grow in a different direction and to try to show people that I know what I've got. And now, after years and years, I don't feel like people test me like they used to. There was a whole lot of, little girl, you don't know how to price your merchandise. And finally now I definitely don't have to deal with as much of that, thankfully.
That's good. That is really good. Mm-hmm. Now, I know Allison Jenkins, who owns Comic Envy.
Yeah.
She took over when the previous owner left for various reasons. How close are you all? Are y'all a good support team for each other, or are y'all more competitive in the market, or does it? What is your relationship like with her as far as being both of y'all being female comic book store owners?
Well, one, we totally got along with Darren also. We were thrilled when, after years of running his comic book shop, Comic Envy, he decided to take on some more out of his bucket list, because we all only get so many days or years on this planet. So he wanted to handle some other things, and it meant that Allison was able to step up, and it was extremely exciting to see another lady appear on the Asheville comic scene. So and then after that, maybe a year after that, was Emily Russell. She ended up opening Fantastic Cards and Comics in the Biltmore Village area, and I hear they're going to be okay.
Good. That's good.
I mean, it was very scary for a little bit there, for everyone, I guess. And then Charla Schluter, I might have mispronounced that, but she works with Gamers Haunt, and she's a female business owner, and we all have some overlap of clientele. So in fact, actually, we were going to meet in person. Mountain Express was doing a women in business edition, and we were struggling for weeks, the four of us, to try to find a time that all of us could run our shops but still meet in person and have decent weather, or to, what outfits we were gonna wear, because I hadn't experienced a whole lot of that. But that was fun for a little bit, that the ladies were like, what shirt, what clothes? And I'm like, let's just do it, come on, how about we just go for it? And then finally we agreed on a time, and it was the day to finally meet in person, all four of us, which had never, I don't think that's ever happened, all four of us in the same space, to do this photo shoot for a women's edition of Business Owner Nerd Shops in Asheville. And that same day was the day that the torrential downpour started that preceded by a day the hurricane. So maybe next year. I've talked to all of them, and I've said, we got so close, you guys. We've got to get back and do this sometime.
Yeah, well, So, what is your favorite part of owning the comic book store, of owning Morgan's Comics?
I would have to say the friends that I've made. It's been incredible, the love and the pals, and some of my very favorite people I've ever met are because of this shop. And romantically, I met my partner here after, he had been the postman, the punk rock postman of Haywood Road with his green hair, and he was the postman for this store, and he had short sleeves at the end of winter one day, and I saw that he had K9 from Doctor Who tattooed on him, and I was like, you're the perfect postman for this store. And he didn't have a lot of friends in town, and he had a little tiny girl that didn't have many friends, and I invited them, like I would almost anybody, to come and try to make some pals here. And it turned out he was great at it's actually his education background, but he is extremely talented at teaching people how to play games. And so he ended up leading board game night and making almost all of his friends through that. And then he's kind of all day, every day into Pokemon. So he created Gengar's Gang, which is our official play Pokemon league here for Morgan's Comics. And he's been doing that for years now. And then, I guess outside of just making friends here, I love nerd stuff, so I could talk to anybody about nerd things all day long. And if people are, maybe open to making friends, it's still just fun to help them find their favorite story and maybe a connection to a tale that they enjoyed. And, maybe one day they'll end up having a subscription list, and they'll have a long, healthy friendship and business relationship with us, like many people in this area do. And that's my favorite part. It's beautiful what all of us as a community have created here. I can't wait to see it keep growing.
I like that. The community part. That's one thing I've noticed when you walk in here. You feel like you're part of a community. You can feel the love in the air.
Well, you are, John. You're part of this team.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I do appreciate that.
Yeah.
Well, as we saw with the two gentlemen who came in just a minute ago, you say welcome to the Nerd Sanctuary. What is the origin of welcome to the Nerd Sanctuary?
Well, you may think about when you walk into any other store that people say, hey, and you might autopilot say, hey, back, but you don't really think about it. And so I wanted something that engaged people right from the start. And I have a very strong theater background and nothing big, nothing huge yet. But I wanted it to feel like a party vibe. That's the happy, energetic music we've always got going in here, and you don't know which nerd direction, like a sensory overload of exciting things that you could potentially get into. And I wanted whoever was the voice behind the counter to have that same kind of vibe, welcoming and inviting. And so it just kind of organically happened one day that someone walked in and I said, welcome to the Nerd Sanctuary, and they responded with, thank you, so glad to be here, or like, I'm home. And it just kind of, I realized it was getting such good feedback and now it's on the front of the store, welcome to the Nerd Sanctuary, right under the name of the business. So people really took to it.
That's great. That is great. So who and or what do you attribute your success to?
Well, it's a list. I would say first my parents for teaching me to really fight for anything that I believe in, and then my kids for wanting to build something that two little lady nerds could grow up into and be proud of and see how hard I fought for it, and that maybe they'd want to take it in the directions that they thought was the new cool nerd thing that we don't even know about yet, and leave something for them that they could help grow in their way like we all do here. And then to my amazing partner for always believing in me and for tirelessly coming to bat to help defend and protect. It even says so on his business card that he's the champion of Morgan's comics. That that's just a love that I haven't really known in my life, and I'm so grateful that I have someone to have my back like he does. It's pretty excellent that I found something so special for myself too.
That's great. That is wonderful. Congratulations on that. That is wonderful. Do you have any advice for anyone, male or female, who wants to have their own business? Just away from stepping aside from the nature of the business, just business in general.
I would say that I can't remember where I read it from, but it said, at least in West Asheville, and I feel like this in general is probably true, that it takes a good 5 or 10 years of being on call all the time and putting in all those hours. It's no exaggeration, but you can't give up, right? You gotta keeping an eye out, looking for the light to shine in a pathway that you need to go to keep making your business flourish or grow. And yet it takes a lot of hard work. There's a lot of boring paperwork behind the scenes, but the part I love the most is up here with you guys. But you have to be versatile unless you've got a whole team helping you. You have to be able to go all in, and I'd say power through it 5-10 years, and then probably, I'm hoping, it's all gonna, no more hurricanes, no more pandemics. I think we'd be well ahead of where we are right now. But I'd say 5 or 10 years is what you should expect it's gonna take before you hit the ground and it just rolls along. Before you can find an autopilot, that might be the way to describe it, where you're gonna be able to go on a vacation and know the store's okay while you're gone.
So one last question.
Yeah.
Is there anything you would like to add? Anything you want to just say, put out there for people on YouTube and the world to see or hear? Anything you want to add to that?
Well, I think we did talk about the fact with my theater background, but I've always been an artist. That's what brought me to comics in the first place, is that I loved science fiction as a little kid, and I loved art ever since I was able to pick up a crayon, according to my mom. And so I loved imagining a better future, and I loved drawing out this future and all the possibilities, and eventually I found comic books where it was a blend of story and art, and I'm a writer and an artist, and I love helping build up other people to take their shot and try to bring their art into the world also. And to that end, so much got destroyed during this hurricane that I've encouraged every artist that needs the space that they can perform here and they can hang up their art here, and I will try to sell it. I will buy it up front if I can. And that Matt and I, in fact, us ourselves, built our own website during the most bleak part of this. And so go check out www.morganscomics.com. And also, we have been, because it's so good for my heart to create art, and fantastic apparently for my blood pressure with all the, like, you guys can't see this, but Asheville, it's pretty rough out there. So to find some peace for my heart, creating art every day. So we created an Etsy store that was originally made just for our 1 hour art studio for all the little kids that come and do art here, that they could get prints put up on the website. But we've been adding art to it regularly. So it's Giggly Baby Fox Art on Etsy. And we are adding new pieces to it even later today. So if you want to help us stabilize and you want to help Asheville grow and restabilize so that I can hire more people, give people jobs so that we can get our feet underneath us. And if you just like the concept, because I think it's pretty cool, I've got a Outlander inspired piece that I'm about to put on there because the show is coming back out on Friday. So we definitely have some pretty possibly controversial artwork, but most of it's just really pretty. So go and check out our Etsy store too. See what we've got outside of just owning and running a comic book store.
Thank you for joining us in our visit with Morgan of Morgan's Comics, The Nerd Sanctuary, and getting to know her better. We hope to see you soon.